Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Dark Matters Network. Today we have the amazing Kaine Stromberg with us, a renowned soul empowerment mentor, mindfulness and meditation teacher, and inner child healer. Kaine's diverse skill set ranges from NLP, life coaching to energy healing and meditation teaching. Kaine has helped countless individuals break free from the shackles of their past, empowering them to embrace a life of true happiness, purpose, abundance, and love. As above, so below, as within, so without. Kaine's philosophy is simple yet profound. Love is the answer to every question, and it all begins and ends. His mission is clear: to guide and remind people of their true essence, helping them reconnect with themselves and rekindle their love for life. And with a trailblazing career of transformative work, Kaine has already enriched the lives of tens of thousands of people around the globe, or flat Earth, or sphere within a sphere. That's a different podcast. Let's not go there. So, Kaine, my brother, amazing to have you join our Dark Matters Network and for you to be with us here today. How are you, my love?
Thank you, Kylie. Yes, I am. I'm blessed. It's been an experience to get to this point, as I'm sure that everyone can relate to. There's been lots of twists and turns and ups and downs, but just with a roller coaster ride, it'd be pretty fucking boring without those twists and turns and ups and downs. So I am grateful, to use a single word and expression. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for it all
Yeah, I
and
think
to
that's
be
been it,
here.
hasn't it? I 2020 certainly was the year of 2020 vision for many people, wasn't it? And I've stolen that
Ooh,
off Larry,
yes,
so I have to. Yeah, it's a
beautiful.
good one, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think if I, I say I've been awake, but awake is a part for the dead, as I always say that now. So I'm trying to stay away from that and use the word aware. So we're becoming more and more aware of what this place is. And that's why
Okay.
I mentioned in the intro about the as above, so below, because as we're finding out on Dark Matters, on the podcast in general,
Mhm.
this place isn't quite what we think it is it? And your work and what you do. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? I mean, this saying, as within, so without, as above, so below, it can pop out of my mouth willy-nilly, but to actually truly understand what that actually means and for those who kind of aren't familiar with that phrase, it's usually to describe the relationship between our inner and outer worlds, isn't it?
Mhm.
And that what we put out into the world is this reflection of what's going on inside of us, isn't it? So can you
Beautiful.
tell us a little bit more about that and how that fits into your work and what you do?
So, in my viewpoint, it all starts internally. We are the creators of our own reality, and it's what we look for that we then see. So, if we're always looking for negativity externally because society has funneled us into a space where we believe we are victim, that there are governmentarial bodies that control us and limit us and affect us, then we then actually adopt and embody the frequency of being a victim, and we would then actually see externally things to victimize us. I'm in a space and place now where when I experience certain sensations and emotions, my mind doesn't try to attach or find a reason for it. So I was feeling frustration, and a lot of frustration, about a week ago. And there was half a dozen quite large reasons. The new website wasn't launched properly. The new puppy, who is the most beautiful godsend that I have ever experienced, and a blessing from the universe, had pooed all over the front room. There was two or three other things: parking fines for parking in front of a drive as opposed to a footpath. They give me a footpath notice for parking in front of a driveway instead of a footway. Lots of different things. And I felt this feeling of frustration come up. And I watched myself try to attach it to something so that I had an external reason to feel frustrated. And then that external reason of frustration would compound and allow me to believe that I had a reason to feel frustrated. And then I would actually frustrate myself about the external. I knew that I was just feeling a sensation, an emotion of frustration, just to accept it and to allow it to flow through. And that's what I did. I didn't try to attach it to anything. I just let it be experienced and flow through. And in that moment, it meant that I wasn't then subjected to feeling frustrated and giving my power away to something external. So, in the best understanding and way of being able to deliver the information, I view everything as a holographic representation. We have an internal view of ourself and our place in reality, and then we project it externally so that we can see and confirm our belief system. Again, we are likened to a computer, if you like. We're born blank, and then we are programmed. We're programmed to believe certain things, to believe that certain religions are correct, that certain cultures are superior to others, etc., etc., you know? And as well as this, to believe that we are either born into a family of absolute wealth and we will always be wealthy because that is part of our belief system, as an example, or to be born into a family where we are oppressed, where we're ridiculed, where maybe our parent doesn't feel that they're good enough. So in order to elevate their feeling of worth, they put down us as children. They ridicule us. They tell us we're no good. They tell us we're stupid. My dad used to jokingly call me a silly little cunt. And I grew up believing I was a silly little cunt. And then sometimes I would behave like a silly little cunt and I wouldn't understand as to why I was behaving that way. But it's because I believed subconsciously, deep within my neurological network, that I was a silly little cunt. And then growing up, because of that wound, any time that somebody would call me a silly little cunt when I became a young adult, I would black out or I would red mist, and then I would be destructive, and I'd come around and be, what have I done? I would hurt people because of that amount of pain and that hurt that I was carrying internally. I then hurt people because the only reason that people hurt other people is because they're hurting themselves. So this journey of parts recognition and integration, to know that if we're getting in our own way, that maybe there's part of me that wants to be successful, that wants to elevate, that wants to be free flowing, that wants to be abundant. So the return, the other side of the coin, there is part of me that wants to stay heavy, that wants to stay dense, that wants to stay in the place that I am familiar. Because familiarity, the subconscious mind will always take the path of least resistance. The path of least resistance is the familiar path. So the more that we start to inner stand, as you so beautifully put, the way that certain interactions or conversations make us feel internally, the more we can question whether that response, that reaction, if you like, is valid, is true, is right, or perhaps there is an alternative way of feeling about that situation. And then we can start to do the inner work to change our inner, well, an inner world, if you like, our inner reality. And in doing so, it changes the external. I
Yeah.
personally know this to be true because I used to be 18 stone of muscle and rage and anger. And everywhere I went, there was a reason for me to be angry. Everyone wanted to fight me. I'd walk through town and people would literally gravitationally walk into me. But what the fuck? Get away from me. I'm huge. Get out of my way. Can you not see me? And then when I had this awakening, that I don't know what other word to, what did you say earlier? Because that was really powerful.
I left awake, or I tried to, but it's difficult, isn't it? Because we
Because
know
of
that
the
language,
funeral.
unfortunately, is what we've got at the moment. I know we're all
Mm-hmm.
dissecting it and decoding it, but I like to say that I'm aware and have a warity.
Aware. Beautiful.
A warity, I think I've made up, Kane, if I'm honest. It's a
Authority.
made up spell word
Authority,
that.
an awareness of your authority. That's beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, that could be,
That's
that would work,
beautiful.
wouldn't it? Yeah,
So when I went upon this remembering journey, as I actually like to
yeah,
put it, it's remembering the truth of who we are, because all the information is already housed within. The answers we seek are inside, they're not out there. So when we meditate and we reflect, the answers are then brought to the surface. Along with the answers, sometimes there is maybe something heavy or negative which is raised to the surface, which needs to be cleared and cleaned, that information, that energy transmuted, redistributed, recycled, and then used into something more beneficial. So quite often,
yeah,
in order to gain the answer, the wisdom, the treasure, we have to go into the darkness and face the demons that are in there, which are really just versions of ourself, which have been shamed or traumatized, that the subconscious mind takes and hides away in the darkness to protect us from that trauma. After that journey, which for me came through actually trying to end everything. And in the ending of everything, my ego let go of its view of who it was, who I was, my place in society. I believed that I was I was fated to work a dead-end job for the rest of my life to provide for my family, that I was never really going to be happy. That was me. And that version of me died when I let go of that version of myself. And in doing so, my whole world changed. When I changed, my external world changed because the way I looked at things changed. What I looked for changed. I started to look for the beauty. I started to look for love. I started to look for connection. I started to look for good people. I started to look for where there is justice instead of injustice. And I started in that moment to actually take power back over my own choices in life, because no longer did I feel like I was a victim to the external. I felt as though I was creating internally and then experiencing external. So I am now in a space and place where if something happens that is heavy or negative, and in the moment I don't want to experience it, I know very well that I've created it, that for whatever reason it's there to be experienced. And that in itself helps me go, okay, this is for me. It's not happening to me, it's happening for me. Because life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. Yes, again, society has tried to elude us to this truth, to focus upon the problem, to victimize us, to publicize the separation within humanity, publicize the fact that there are rules that make no sense, that everyone is still following and being compliant to. And at the same time, everything that takes place happens for us, not to us. So as we continue down the path, every card that they play, which in truth, they are just an element of us. And again, everything external is a projection of the internal. If we're feeling victimized by a governmentarial body externally, it's because internally there is part of us that felt victimized by a governmentarial body whilst we were growing up, most probably. And then that part of us needs to convince or confirm its version of reality. I'm a victim. Governmentarial people control and victimize me. That's part of my belief system. I need to confirm that belief system for it to exist. So therefore, I focus on the governmentarial control to convince myself and confirm my belief. Once we let go of it being a belief, which can be done simply by questioning, is it true? The government controls me, represses me, victimizes me. Okay. Is it true? It seems true. Do I know it to be true 100% factually? Does every single person that works for a governmentarial body around the entire globe, do they all seek to control and repress me? Probably not. No. Okay. So maybe it's not true. Maybe it's not. Okay. What would feel nicer? The fact that I am controlled by forces outside of myself that I hold no power over, or the fact that I'm not, and that actually I get to choose the way that I live and what I do. What feels nicer? Well, obviously, free will and free choice feels nicer to me. Okay, so what are we going to focus on? The feeling of victimization, of separation, of control, or the feeling of empowerment, of unity, of community, of coming together in beautiful spaces like Dark Matters to be able to share this wisdom, to support each other upon this journey as we are coexisting and flowing, if you like, which I believe when we exist in that flow state, everything is perfect and divine. We're on a journey back home to the self, back home to love. And in my view, we're supporting each other, we're guiding each other, we're reminding, and inspiring each other. So that's about it
And
in a nutshell.
it's exactly what Dark Matters is about. It's exactly what we're revealing on the podcast. And I met Kaine at Ant Critchley, who does a bit of
Yeah,
presenting with us, and he's got his own podcast now, Stellify. And obviously it was Drake, Michigan then, and they did the festival Time to Rise. And I spotted Kaine, and I was aware of you and your work, but I spotted you, and I think you were dunking people in ice baths.
yeah, that's right.
And I vaguely popped into one of the workshops that was going on at the time. And
Yeah,
if you've not met Kaine, Kaine's a very big, tall guy, big, good-looking guy. You pick people up, and you just get these amazing hugs off Kaine. So that I think just doing that is enough in and of itself, Kaine. Really, But what you do, I mean, even just listening to your voice, then I always find it very soothing, very calm.
mm,
And I know that I know more about your history, and we'll perhaps delve a little bit more into that and give an explanation of how you got to do the work that you do.
Mm.
But I know just listening to your meditations, even just listening to you, then I felt like closing my eyes off because I've been because I've listened to your meditations in my ears. I was like, I'm just going to close my eyes, take a deep breath. But yeah, it absolutely is, isn't it? And that's what we're untying these knots that have been placed into us, this deep programming. And like you said, that our inner demons, and especially in computer programming, and our bodies are these biological computers. They
Mhm.
call programs running in the background in the computer, they call them daemons, or daemons. So it is this kind of, we can see the construct out there, but it's about not being a victim to it. And like you say, if we're in this victim mode all the time, then we're so open to being saved, right? And this is why the church offer salvation, or salvage in legal terms. It's the salvage of the empty vessel, the bone of Acantia. So kind of like, as you say, because part of becoming sovereign really is having the sovereign mindset, and you touched on it beautifully there at the beginning. Why were you reacting like that? That's how it has to start to begin, when we're not kind of just wandering around with these unconscious programs, but
Yes.
bringing them forward and going, why did I react like that then? And
Yes.
then we kind of, yeah, we can begin to kind of like,
Beautiful.
root out these deep kind of this deep brainwashing, this deep programming. um so with your journey, like you touched on it a little bit there. So what was the big trigger? I mean, you obviously said you went to such dark places, and I do believe I have as well. And I think this place is Hades to a degree, especially if you're carrying around, like you say, because we're
Hmm.
projecting all this internal baggage out. This is
Hmm.
what we're going to get, isn't it? And it really is true. And we'll get into the science of that a little bit. I've been doing a little bit of research this morning, but
Beautiful.
certainly, like for me, once you kind of make friends with those demons and you can rewire those neural pathways, then that's super, super powerful, isn't it? Because if we it's water words intent, isn't it? And if we kind of keep saying we are something, or thinking we are something, because like you say, the subconscious wants to stick to those old patterns because that's the easy thing to do, right? That's
Yes.
safe.
Yes. Yes.
Give me a pain that I'm used to. But it
Yes.
takes such bravery and strength to kind of face nothing worse, is there, than looking at your goddamn self like with that kind of cosmic overview. So what would you say was like your breaking point, really, that really kind of thought, I need to change. This isn't who I am. I've got to rip all this stuff out. And what were the kind of consequences and benefits to that?
Just before I reflect back upon that, I just wanted to reflect on everything that you've just so beautifully flowed through. And it's the importance of language, the linguistics that we embody and we share, with I am being the most powerful statement in existence. Whatever we put
Yeah,
after I am is a command. We're commanding the operational system within the hardwired mindset and belief system to confirm that belief. I am is like operation, like commanding a computer and then limiting, lacking. I am sick. I am whatever it is. And then, of course, we're going to actually energetically take upon that form because we've consciously commanded it as such. And it's taking apart words such as, like you said, mourning, or awake being a funeral. For me, it's mourning. Why do we greet each other with a morning at the start of the day? Why are we mourning the day before it begins, So again, it's questioning ourselves when we say certain things. I'm stupid, I'm worthless, I'm there. So is that true? Where does that belief come from? Who told me that? Where does that come from? Is it true or could it not be true, etc., etc.? And that is, long story short, really how my transformation took place. I believed something to be true so intrinsically that it led me to want to disappear from this realm, if you like. So growing up, and I've only really recently discovered that it was an ancestral program, if you like. So I used to believe I was intrinsically evil. I used to believe I was evil because I looked at my father and he was quite evil in many ways. He did some horrible shit. I've seen him do really, really bad stuff to people. He was, want of a better word, a gangster. And I was fearful of him, but I also idolized him because of the amount of power that he held and how people would do anything for him. We'd go in a restaurant and they'd like move tables and set us up a table, like if there was no tables and things like that, you know. So
Like
part
the
of me like
Godfather.
idolized it. Part of me was fearful of him, and his belief that he was evil was embodied. And then if you believe that you're evil, you act accordingly, and you act like you're evil. So then I was taking upon the energetics when I was around him and the belief structure of my father figure, the person that I'm looking to as a young man to learn from and to mimic. Monkey see, monkey do, you know.
Yeah.
So I took upon that belief system, and then I did things accordingly to confirm and convince myself that I was evil. When my second son was born, with my firstborn, my ex-wife got postnatal, and we kind of got through it. I managed to just about drag us through it, and I was cracked, but I was okay. When my second son was born, and this again is only through reflection afterwards, but as a self-preservational tactic, because I couldn't do what I did before. I couldn't do another year of sleeping 2 hours a night, working a night shift, looking after the family, etc., etc. I just couldn't do it. So to protect myself, I shut down. I went into deep depression. And when my son was born, I looked at my son, this most beautiful gift from the heavens, who was born still, and the midwife gave him to me and ran out of the room. And I just looked at this beautiful being and just like intuitively put my finger in his mouth, scooped out the gunk, give him a little pat, and he opened it. He's like, and opened his eyes and looked at me. And in that moment, I felt nothing, and it fucking killed me to be given such a gift and to not feel any love because I had separated myself so far from that love because of the depression, then led me to resurface that belief that I'm evil. I'm fucking evil. You horrible, horrible cunt. How could you not love such a gift? How could you not love your own blood and flesh? And it broke me. It properly broke me, or the version of me that I thought I was. I still feel a residue to it. It's still, I can talk about it, but it still raises, there's still energy and motion that is experienced talking about it. But that energy emotion now does flow in and it does flow out because it doesn't have a point of reference internally to connect to. It's nothing internal that holds that belief. That thought comes in, there's nothing to attach to internally because the belief is no longer internalized. So it flows through. I still feel the heavy energy flow through me. It doesn't get stuck and go in. So that belief that I was intrinsically broken, that I was evil, then led me to go into a pit of darkness, of depression. And that's where I stayed for a very long time. And in that space, in the darkness, I surrendered to it, basically. Some whatever. Can't get any worse than this, whatever. But actually, in the darkness was where I found the information that I needed that existed there, because if it was already in the light, I would have already known it cognitively. I know it all internally anyway. It's all, we have access to all of it within the Akashic records, our higher self. We can access any information. We can gain the answer to any question through meditation. But starting to consciously know these things and go, oh, that was because of that, and that was because of that, and that was because of that. And actually, through this journey, I became quite good friends with the devil, if you want to use that terminology, because I realized that he wasn't separate to me. And actually, as a statement, and the statement which has probably been most impactful, second to life happens for me, never to me, for me, mantras given to me in meditation, was that I am the angel and the devil. Therefore, I can be everything in between.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening that feels as though maybe they've gone into a place where they're separate from light, they're separate from love, they're separate from those high vibrational things, and perhaps we're in darkness, for me, something that again was given to me that was incredibly powerful was the realization that there is no light and dark. There is no black and white. In the yin, there is yang. In the yang, there is yin. When it looks light, when it looks pure white, there's still a drop of black. And when it looks pure black, there's still a drop of white. So actually, there's just an infinite number of shades of gray. So no matter where we are on the spectrum, we don't have to go from dark to light. We don't have to go from fear or hatred all the way to love. We can just go from gray to gray to gray to gray to gray to gray. One step at a time, one breath at a time, knowing that where we are is taking us to where we want to be. And then without being where we are, we can't get to where we want to be. So it's a full acceptance. I accepted the darkness in myself. And I did that because I learned about it. I went back, I reflected on it. I spoke to people. I gained a deeper understanding. So the version of me that was 8, that believed himself to be evil because I did this thing that really wasn't evil, but I was convinced it was at the time, actually realizing that that wasn't evil, it was just a child being curious and inquisitive, meant that I could let go of that program. But then it still held residue for me. So then I went back and I was like, that's my dad. Where does that come from? And I actually had a conversation with him, and his mum was religious, God-fearing, and she used to beat him every day and tell him he was the devil. So from a young boy to a young man, he was convinced and took upon the belief that he was the devil. So what the fuck else was he going to do but behave devilish and hurt people because he was hurt? So it's realizing that some of the belief systems and the things that we hold aren't ours to begin with. We have been passed them by the generations before. And it is us that is feeling those feelings that were repressed and denied through however many generations it might be. Because once the emotion is allowed to be energy emotion again, once we feel it, it is spent and then we're free from it.
Yeah. Wow. And it's the breaking down of those words again there that you did beautifully. So it's like emotion, isn't it? It's that energy in motion. And when we get it stored in our bodies and it gets stuck because we're not dealing with it, we're not letting it go, we're not looking at it, then that's what creates disease or dis-ease in the body. Just as you went through that dark depression, it's deep rest, isn't it? It's deep rest. So we're going into these the labyrinths of our mind, really, and also as you quite rightly pointed out there with your father, it sometimes isn't even, well, I mean, it's our trauma because we've taken it on. Then it's this ancestral and generational trauma that kind of the book then has to stop with us, right? Whether that's Generation
100%.
X or us loonies who are going to, go to battle, but it is this battle within ourselves. And as you quite rightly said, this is why I call the dark matters, because the dark does matter.
It really does.
It isn't about shooting rainbows out of our bums and light and love and all that is you want to do
Only
that,
love and light, unicorns and rainbows, crew. No negativity here. Thank you.
yeah, your energy in here is really like affecting me right now. Yeah, that group of people, and like you said, that's they're externalizing and they're projecting outwards. And the real work is that and it might sound cheesy, but it is this inner work. And like you say, if just as your father would have been repeating to himself, I'm the devil, I'm the devil. We know that it's people may be aware of Dr. Emoto's work, the guy who said to water how much he loved one bottle of water, how much he hated the other bottle of water, and the other one he just ignored, and put rice in it and to see what happened, etc. Go check those experiments out. But obviously the water, and that's what we're made up of. And if we're telling it to ourselves, never mind, that's the energy that we're taking on, then that is exactly what we're going to create. And that's the science, isn't it, man? And Veda Austin's work, I don't know if people were Veda Austin, where she was taking the imprints of images and putting them into water. I mean, this is what we're all starting to like relearn or take back about how this place works. And like you say, saying I am something all the time, if it's in the negative, if you're saying I am great, that's brilliant. But if you're saying I'm shit, or I'm a drug addict, or I never got AA meetings, like, Alcoholics Anonymous, to go into a room. We were talking about this the other day on a different podcast, and it's actually a very Masonic sign, not that all Masons are evil or anything like that. They just know
I
the
agree.
secrets of the universe. But yeah, you'll know this more than anybody with your work, Kane. If you're going to keep telling yourself, I'm an alcoholic, well, then you're sure enough to be one. And je suis means
Yes,
I am, French, doesn't it? Jesus, je suis, I am. The power's within us. And they
which
love
is Christ
the system,
consciousness.
the matrix, loves us to externalize everything and wait for someone to come and save us. But that's not
Mhm.
happening, as we're starting to see.
Starting to realize that we don't need saving, that we're not
Exactly.
broken, so we don't need to be healed. All we need to do is
Yeah.
get the fuck out of our own way and allow ourselves to enjoy the life that we were born to live, a
Yeah.
life that is authentic. It's authenticity. It's being authentic.
Yeah.
That is the highest vibrational frequency. It supersedes love. And that is,
Yeah, I saw that experiment. It was for people that don't know. They did an experiment, didn't they? And everyone you'd think that love would be the highest frequency, but it was actually measured as being your authentic self.
yeah,
Which
because
again, the new ages have come because it's always trying to get you
exactly.
into new boxes, isn't it?
Yes. But if we're the love and light unicorns and rainbows crew and we're a bit pissed off, but we're denying it, we're going like this. Internally, my energy's going, I'm fucking pissed off, but I'm projecting myself to be happy. Unicorns and rainbows, love and light. Well, actually, you're not actually embodying love there. You're embodying a distorted version of it. And even if you manage to release the negativity some other way other than actually accepting it, it's the acceptance. When we accept something, we release it. If we accept who we are and where we are, we have a start point to move forwards from. If we're pissed off and we deny it, again, we're blocking that energy and it then actually persists internally. Very powerful. And for me, AA is supply and demand. We have to go, okay, I'm an alcoholic. I've got a problem. I
Yeah.
accept where I am so I can move forwards from it. But then once we move forwards from it, if I keep going, I'm an alcoholic, what I'm actually doing is putting myself back again. And
Yeah.
that's supply and demand. It keeps people looping back to the beginning
Yeah.
because otherwise AA wouldn't be as required as it is if we were able to self-regulate, to self-heal. Again, it's like pharmaceutical companies as a typical example. It a supply and demand system. They make you sick and then they give you something to cover up the sickness that doesn't heal it, that keeps you sick so that you go back for the masking of the sickness and it just keeps you in that continual loop.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's absolutely bob on, isn't it? And not pressing the AA point again, the number in the middle is 33. It's actually even telling you, and 33, everyone goes, oh, it's a Masonic symbol, but it's actually obviously 33 nodes of Albion, as above, so below. We have the 33 vertebrae. Our power really, really is within. And that's what it says in scripture. It's the kingdom within. The only limitations we have are the limitations we place upon ourselves, like you said beautifully before. It's that this self-saboteur part of us. I have it. Things can be going really well, and I'll go and do something really stupid. But what I found is I'm aware of it now. And I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. You're just about, so it's like, I call it head office, this voice, this kind of newer voice in my head. And head office goes, Carly, what are you about to do? Or what are you doing? And I go, I'm a little like tussle with myself. And then I go, like, sit down. Let's not do that. And I'm not saying I've mastered it, but I mean, you take me back 10 years, even 20 years, I'm still me, but I would say I'm a huge different version of myself. Even to a couple of years ago, like I've been through some long dark Hades these last 2 years. Wow, oh, have I? And hopefully emerged out a butterfly, that
Butterfly,
metamorphosis.
yes,
I'd say my
you
wings
most
are like
definitely are.
this, Kane. They're like just popping out the
No,
pupa.
no,
I'm not quite
you've
ready
got them
yet, but I'm
spread.
like,
They're spread and they look regally beautiful. Maybe we're requiring a little bit more drying in the sunshine, which is still not
yeah.
quite with us fully. But we're
Somebody
here.
put up on social media today. It's like the ultimate gaslighting, isn't it? From the powers that be. It's like, it's cold, but everything's warming up, and everyone's going, huh? Hang on, ah. And again,
Yeah, so
we're
then
waiting
so
for it
then if we buy
to go
into
out.
that, we collectively feed into the fact it's cold and we create a reality that is cold, that is warming up.
Exactly. And again, going back to the science, man, we know that there's this assault on what is natural, on our very DNA, on our very source code. Allegedly, we would have had 12 strands of DNA, and that was reduced to two because we were getting a little. We are these divine sparks, and like we were saying again, it is about rewiring our neural pathways, and if we're externalizing our power, I've healed myself. I didn't do it by going to groups, but that can really help people. Some people that can really help. That's not me. That's not really my style. So I kind of and I have to do things the hard way. So I was like, I put myself through it. But again, it's just kind of remembering that it is from within and it is us, and that is
100%.
kind of what's been. They love us to externalize. That's why the church offers,
It
again, like
gives
we
away
said,
power.
salvation. We're giving it
Giving
away.
away the
Same
power.
with AA, isn't it? One of the things is you give your power away to a higher God, and
Yeah.
I say, whose God are they referencing here? That's
Yes.
it's the God of this realm. It's the God of boxes. It's the God of construct and
Mm-hmm.
confinement and
Mm-hmm.
contract and commerce,
Mm-hmm.
as you said, and it keeps feeding that beast. So what you do, Kaine, I think is absolutely so important. It's as important as beginning to understand the true, nature of law. I always say the journey of the law is the journey of the spirit, isn't it? It's
Yes.
we're remembering who we are.
It's empowering each individual to live authentically and truthfully as their unique vibrational expression of reality. For me, if each one of us is a different frequency, we could liken it to a different color, different colors in the rainbow. We need every color in the rainbow for the rainbow to be complete. So it's only when we try and deform ourselves to fit in or to be accepted by somebody else that we feel as though something's not right. And then we look externally to find something that's not right. And we say, oh, it's that's what's wrong. That's the reason that I feel frustrated or I feel out of sorts or out of alignment. Whereas if we actually looked internally and said, hang on a minute, well, actually, I'm purple, but I've been trying to be red for a long time. And I've mended up this weird brown muddy color. So let's take off that red egoic mask, remember who the fuck I am, and then, oh, I feel free now. I don't feel controlled or limited by external factors, It does all
And
really does start internally, really does.
And it's this frequency again. We know, like with DNA. I mean, Russian scientists have actually reprogrammed or managed to reprogram human DNA using words and frequencies. We
Frequency.
are the words we tell ourselves.
Mhm.
We are the company that we keep. If you've
The
got people who are
spells.
bringing down
We
and
spell it
keep
because
in a
it's a
lower
spell.
frequency, exactly. And we know that we can reprogram ourselves by telling ourselves different mantras, basically. I mean, I'm not saying it's that simple or easy. Um, but our data, and I wrote this down, our data is stored in like we said earlier, in our DNA, like a computer.
Yes.
But actually, our genetic code uses grammar and syntax in a very similar way as to we do, which is,
Yes.
you've just hit on it there, which is why they give us this English language construct so that we're all spelling on each other's. I mean, even it's this dead language. It's the language of the dead fiction, the straw man, the language of the dead. Well, you are already dead. Think that's you breathing, etc. And it
Raised
follows
to meet
the
the
same
dead.
kind of rules as well. So when we kind of reprogram or we start to be aware of that, then we're starting to raise our frequency. We know that it's all frequency. Because Jedi's, you're becoming a Jedi, aren't you? You're becoming
Literally.
the old Jedias were priests who basically used words because they knew that every word carried a frequency. So when we start to understand all this and we're
Hmm.
alchemizing, we're turning our lead to gold, we're deprogramming, we are becoming Jedi's, and it's the balance in the force. It ain't the light, which the new age want you to think it is, but it ain't all dark either, and it's that the middle road of the adept, as we say at Dark
Yeah,
Matters. So
100%.
your work without doing the inner work. I mean, can you tell us a little bit more about the inner child healing? Because we all have this hurt
Of
inner
course.
child in us, don't we? And I've had to have some serious
We most
conversations with
definitely do.
mine over the years.
Yeah,
Bless the socks.
likewise. So to go back to a few words that you've touched upon as well throughout it is reacting. So anytime we react, we're not responding as the conscious, competent, sentient being that we are. We're reacting from a place of trauma. So if as a 6-year-old child something traumatic happens, what the subconscious mind does, if the trauma is so severe, is it takes that version of ourself and that event, puts it in a little black box, which I relate to Pandora's box, and it places it in the back of the mind. out of sight, out of mind. It's doing its job. The subconscious mind's highest and truest directive is to protect and serve the body. So by removing the version of ourself that experienced the trauma, and the trauma is protecting us from thinking about the trauma and it being reanimated in us, so it's protecting us from trauma. Great. But that version still exists. We're just not aware it exists. So then if somebody comes along as an adult and pokes me in my wound, again, if we related it to a computer, if there is a program installed on F2, somebody comes along and presses F2, that program responds. It reacts. It doesn't respond. So apologies. It reacts. And we react as though we are the traumatized child being traumatized all those years ago. And we feel like a traumatized child. And we then react from the place of trauma as a child. And someone then goes, "You're acting quite childish." Like, yeah, I am. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm acting like a child because I'm reacting to that trauma. So then we learn, again, we go back. So the way that it works, you go into a light hypnotic state, you communicate directly with the unconscious or subconscious mind. We figure out, basically through talking therapy, we figure out, okay, that you have a belief that X, Y, or Z. There's a belief that you're not good enough. There's a belief you're unworthy. Unworthiness is the foundational limiting belief within all of humanity. If we all start with our feeling of worth and boost our feeling of worth, then everything else will just naturally start to raise alongside it. So, a silly little cunt. Let's use that again. I'm a silly little cunt. Well, okay. Let's go back. Where did that belief come from? In therapy, taken into a light hypnotic trance, we communicate directly with the unconscious mind. We remind it of its highest and truest directive, which is to protect and serve the body, and let it know that in order to best protect and serve the body, we require the information from this event to let go of the event and to let go of the limiting belief and negative program that was created around the event. So we go back. Silly little cunt. Why do I believe that? Okay. Do. Oh, my dad used to call it to me all the time. Okay, great. Of course, I took upon that belief and I believed it. But because it was shameful and I admired my dad, I didn't remember that that was the fact. I didn't consciously know that information. It was at the back of the subconscious mind. When the subconscious mind then brings the information to the forefront, it then delivers the learnings it needs to let go of that belief. So the learnings would be that I am safe, I am seen, I am good enough, I am worthy, I am loved, I am creator, I am whatever it might be. I am statements. The I am statements are then spoken back to whoever it is taking the therapy session to confirm that belief. And then we go back before the event or any chain of events which led to it. It's a bit like removing a weed right from the root. If we only remove the surface of the weed can grow back. If we remove the surface of the weed can grow back. If we remove it a third time, because of the law of three, we then feel we're powerless to remove the weed. And then we focus on the weed and the feeling of powerlessness to it, and focusing on it with our light of attention actually further grows it. So the best thing to do is to acknowledge that it's there, to question it, and then to actually seek professional guidance and support to be able to go into a light hypnotic trance, to communicate with the subconscious mind, to allow the subconscious mind to bring up the learnings, to go prior to the event, to ensure that the first link in the chain is dropped away. We've removed the weed from the root. And then we bring all those learnings back to now, integrating that information into every fiber of our being, every atom, every molecule, and even the space between, across every lifetime, timeline, dimension, reality. It doesn't allow the subconscious mind to have any area or element of doubt within that space. That's timeline therapy, which for me is one of the most powerful tools. I think if everybody did inner child healing work and timeline therapy, the world would instantly be a happier and more harmonious and openly connected space. The only reason, again, that we are separate is because we are fearful. That person is different to me. I don't understand them, so I'm scared of them. So I'm either going to hide away from them, keep myself safe, or I'm going to attack them and wrong them, put them down to raise myself up, to convince myself I'm right, which is an egoic response. What you were saying about getting in your own way, that would be a parts integration journey. So actually, I did a live on it just before we jumped on our call after a session with a client. And obviously not to divulge any personal information, but just as a relation or reflection, there was a version of her that existed that believed she needed to be perfect. And there was a version of her that existed that believed she was a mangy, useless cretin. Mangy, worthless cretin. So they both exist, and they both were created in the same moment because they exist almost opposite ends of the spectrum, light and dark, if you like. But in the belief of needing to be perfect, the core reason for the part's existence is to gain love. So the part that is needing to be perfect believes that if it is perfect, it will gain the love. I need to be perfect. I need to be perfect. You strive, you strive, you strive. You need to be perfect, but you still don't gain the love. And then eventually that version runs to a point where it's like exhausted and fed up. It's given everything it can to try and be perfect enough to gain the love, still not gain the love. So then that drops away and the other side then gets to come out, which is the more repressed one. And then that wants to destroy everything. It wants to burn the world to the ground. It wants to be able to not show up. It wants to not be perfect. It wants to actually be a horrible, spitting, venomous, like mongrel, because it's had to be perfect, this version. So then this version is the alternative. It's realizing they both exist for the same reason. Because if this part, that's the spitty, scoungy part, doesn't gain love, then the other part comes out, that doesn't gain love. The other part comes out, that doesn't gain love. The other part, and then it gets to more and more of a split personality disorder, to the point where 1 minute, and this is a typical example of people in very, very highly stressful jobs, say like a lawyer, every day up at the crack of dawn, really structured, really on point. Everything is perfect. Everything is operational. They are at the top of their game. They're perfect. They've got to present themselves to be this version all the time. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Light, 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 light again. And then behind closed doors, they sit there binge watching soaps, crying in their ice cream whilst they're, lounging around in their baggies all day long to balance out the equation. Because we can't be extreme one. We can't be all light. We can't be all dark again. So it's realizing that, again, we're an infinite number of shades of gray and that we're perfect as we are. Because when we come to the mathematical realization and acceptance that the universe is chaos, it's absolutely chaotic. But in this moment, we've found the calm at the center of the storm. This moment is perfect. So for the universe to exist, it exists in such a mathematically finite equation that to me is perfect, or it wouldn't exist. So if the universe exists and is perfect because it exists, and we are part of the universe, then we too are perfect as we are. And again, for me, it's accepting, okay, I accept where I am, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I'm perfect as I am, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Doesn't mean that I need to stay where I am, but accepting who I am gives me a start point to move forwards from. And accepting every step of the journey moving forwards is perfect, is happening for me, not to me, means that if I feel that something is heavy, that I know that that's helping me to get to a point where I actually go, I don't need to carry this much weight, and I let go of some weight, or I'm able to carry a little bit more weight because it strengthens me, etc., etc. So
Yeah.
it
And
is
that's it, and I think
changing the
it's got to
internal
keep at it.
operational system.
Yeah, and it does take time. That's another part, isn't it? We've got to kind of be kind
No,
to
it doesn't.
ourselves.
Timeline therapy doesn't. So it takes about 1,000 hours of repetition for the subconscious mind to learn a new behavior and to
That's
create a
loads
new
of time.
neurological pathway. Timeline therapy, we can do that in an hour because we go
Yeah,
right into the subconscious mind and we change the operational system. We change point
yeah,
A and point B. And then, so it's a bit like walking across a field. So there's a field, it's all overgrown grass. The path most trodden, the neurological pathway that fire and wire together, that belief system, that path trodden, it's just the path we always take. We don't even realize there's another path. What we do in timeline therapy is we go in, we overview it, and we go, okay, there's the path you take, but actually, would you not rather take this path? And the subconscious mind goes, yeah, that's more beneficial. That better protects and serves the body taking that path. that path is then instantly hardwired into the mind, and the old path overgrows instantly. The old path can still be taken, the same as every other piece of greenery along that field can still be walked across, but there's no need to, there's no desire to, there's no familiarity in that path. With the new path that is more beneficial, being the path most trodden, the old path just gets forgotten about. And it's fucking beyond bizarre, because there's a lot of situations where you're then in and you're like, hang on a minute, this would have made me feel this way before, but it doesn't anymore. I don't feel the way that I used to feel. So that takes a little bit of time to get used to consciously, but the actual belief system changes instantly. As soon as the realization's taken and it's integrated, it's locked in.
Yeah. And I think I know when I've made kind of big leaps, it's such an unusual feeling when you've got a new pathway, isn't it? Because it's like you've done the same thing for so long, and when it's just like, and I've found, and this is just my personal experience, so I always used to beat myself up a bit if I kind of slipped up or did, and I'm like, oh no, and then you do that thing again, like, oh, I'm such an idiot, or what did that for? And then it's like, hang on a minute, is I think what do they say, a success, the only difference between a successful person and somebody who classes themselves as a failure or having failed is that the successful person just got back up, and that's it, innit? You just got to kind of keep getting back up and dusting yourself off. So sometimes on my journey, I could feel like I'd make 20 steps forward and then take 25 back, and I got, but then I'd do 10 steps forward and only take 2 back, and it was like this kind of like, but in the end I was just like, down, dust myself off, lick my wounds, get back up, do it again, 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 again. And it's that kind of doom, 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 just constantly. And then one day something just switches,
Yes.
and I'm like, oh, and I'll have an epiphany of some kind, and the job is done. But then, not saying that you can't. Perhaps I don't know. Maybe you could fall back. I don't think that you can. Once, like I say, once you've rewired that pathway.
There are no wrong decisions. There is no wrong direction. If we come to a fork in the road and there's a left and a right, and we take left and then we go, fuck, I should have gone right, then we make our decision wrong. We are the one that wrongs that decision. If
Yeah,
we go left and we go, this is for me, and then even if we trip up and break our leg, and then even if somebody comes along and starts throwing stones at us or whatever we experience along that journey, if we go, this is for me, this is for me, this is for me, then that is the right decision, because we are making it the right decision. It's all dependent on our viewpoint and our belief structure. It really is. Our belief system decides the way that we view ourselves, our place in reality, and reality as a whole.
yeah, yeah. And I think like again, what we're learning on the podcast with some amazing guests that we have is this as above, so below, that the
Mm-hmm.
constellations actually fit into our landscape. That
Mm-hmm.
we are as we kind of evolve. I was chatting to Stephen J.D. Beatty, and I asked him if he thought the Earth was round or flat or whatever. I have no idea. I don't even go there. But I said it's like a sphere, but he said it's the shape of a head. And because we only use 4% of our consciousness, actually, as we expand our consciousness, which is what we're seeing at the moment, people are starting to kind of become more and more aware that actually that's why all these new land masses are forming, like say beyond Antarctica and etc., that they don't want us to see, because as our consciousness expands, it's reflected in our landscape, and that it's coming back
Beautiful.
this kind of deep remembering and deep knowing. And I say, it is their language systems and it's their number systems, it's their constructs, because we are that divine spark, we are the creators, and that's the bit that they don't want us to know. So once I got the backdrop of all this amazing information and misinformation to a degree, I think what then I did was go, when I decided to not believe any of it, and let me know what you think about this, kid, because there's a lie in belief, right? As I say, once I just went like that, and just blew it all away, I kind of had this real sense of peace. And then I just kind of went intern, and I've started feeling almost like a Jedi, like a magi, magi nation, the magician, the magic in the imagination. The system is construct. That's all it wants you to do. Whether it's a book, or you want to say I'm a Buddhist, or I'm a
Mm.
hippie, or
Label.
I'm a mod, or whatever label or box you want to keep sticking yourself in. And the more I remove myself from box and I just stay in like this flux, the whole it's like the Matrix. It just the whole illusion of it breaks down. Because like
Yes.
we were saying before, it's only the limitations that we put on our own minds is what are, that's the firmament really, because firm means
Mm.
stubborn. and ament is idiot. So firmament literally translates as stubborn idiot. So if we're going to be a stubborn idiot and we're going to stay in
Yes.
our ego and we're going to
Yes.
stay like it's your fault or he did this to me and I'm then we're not going to see that change. It really is be the change you want to see in the world,
Be the
and
change you wish to see.
that's the inner work, and that is and it's hard shit, but you've got you devote yourself to it.
Hard.
I found it hard, but then I do like to I make it hard for myself sometimes. So maybe that's perhaps just me.
Well,
Don't
yeah. So again, in the collective belief, if we tell everyone it's hard, we're creating it to be hard for
hey,
them.
yeah,
So
of
let's take
course, yeah.
away the fact it's
It's
hard.
not
Just know
hard.
it's going to be challenging. It's not going to be fucking easy, right? But if
No,
you always do what's easy, you're going to have a hard life. If you do what's hard today, the rest of your life is going to be fucking easy. How about that
yeah.
one? So do what's
I
hard
like
today.
that. Yeah. It's hard,
And
isn't it? Even with our language again, like so, it's almost like I can say it's like we create our own reality, and then I'll go, oh, it's really hard. Don't do it. No, 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 not don't do it. Do it. But it's like, oh, it's really hard though. It's like, oh, shut up, Jill. It's
But
it's easy.
if we don't create obstacles in our path, then why would we feel deserving of receiving the reward the other side when we collectively, as a sentient collective consciousness, have been convinced that we are no good and that we are only as good as what we can achieve in at school? You know, we're marked, our worth, our value is dependent on how compliant we are, how much we can achieve, how much we can produce, etc., etc. So as we get older, why would we not then knowingly or unknowingly create obstacles to overcome to feel worthy of receiving the treasure on the other side? But
And
actually,
I think
again, it is already there. We don't need to do these things. We don't need to create these obstacles. But part of us believes that we do to feel worthy of receiving the reward the other side. Just to
it's a good
reflect
point.
back
It's a good
upon
point that I'm
your
just trying to think of my own brain, Kane. I'm going, hang on, I totally do that. I'm like thinking, why do I make it? It's like I have to make it so hard for myself so I can come out the other side. Like I've been through some form of like tough mudder or something.
it,
That's me.
yes.
It's like Carly rewiring a
It's
neural
your
pathways. It's
external
like let's make
kink
it
is
a
what
tough
it
mudder
is,
neural pathway.
Carly.
Like
It's
make
your
it as hard as
external
possible.
kink. You
Yeah,
like it to be hard because it's what you're familiar with. And that's again, it's previous. For me, I like to be quite heavy and dense. I always
yeah,
want something in the side of my peripheral to be able to go, and feel victimized by. I always aware it's there, and
yeah,
part of my
yeah.
external kink is to want to actually be quite heavy. I want to be heavy. I want to look at something and go, "Oh, well, that's no good." I feel victimized by that. There's part of me that has a kink to it, and it's a book, External Kink. It's a really powerful read. It's realizing that actually the things that we do that limit us, that are negatively affecting us, it's because there is an internal program that is connected to some form of a kink. So people that again are in really highly stressful jobs where they're controlling lots of stuff, sexually they want to be controlled.
Yes,
They
yeah.
balance the equation. So anytime we go to an extreme end of the spectrum, we have a key or an internal or something that then balances the equation out.
And in relation to, say, sexual kinks, like let's go there, it's an interesting arena. I've got some friends who kind of work in conscious kink,
Mm.
and I don't really know too much about it. But what do you think about that? I mean, obviously, these are places where people can go and maybe, reenact certain scenarios, or like you say, they want to be tied up and whipped, and
Mhm,
because
mhm,
they are so in control in in the normal
mhm.
everyday lives, like you say, if you were a CEO of some company. I mean, it tends to, like you
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
it does kind of go hand in hand. Do you think going to somewhere like that, like a conscious king practitioner, to release these things, is the idea to release it fully? Because I think, I suppose there's a danger there that you can kind of get stuck just wanting to experience the kink, because like you were saying earlier, Ken, give me a pain that I'm used to, I suppose. Like that I mean, it's cathartic in a sense, but I would say it would be cathartic, but the point is to remove the kink, or do you
Mhm.
think, because like you say, like any pathway, I suppose, again, really, but I suppose there's a danger people get like the event
So
and the
yes,
time whilst they're trying to get rid of it and decide, no, I like this, and get stuck again in that kind of
yeah.
setting, I suppose.
That that's a difficult one to answer collectively. It would be more
In,
related to the individual, but as a general overview of an answer, what we deny persists. So if in the back of our mind, I'm always thinking, I want to go and get tied up and be whipped, as an example, which that's definitely not my kink.
It's my
But
number.
if that was something that I wanted to do, but I was always denying it, what I'd be doing is shaming that part of myself continuously. And I'd be feeling shameful towards that part of myself, which would be shaming myself. I'd be internalizing and internally shaming myself. If I allow it to be experienced, I may realize that actually it's not for me, but it's something that, well, it held some form of an interest, some form of an attachment, some form of a connection. Once I've scratched that itch, the itch is gone and it's all great. If I never scratch the itch, it's always going to be there and I'm always going to be looking at the itch. And again, what we focus upon, we grow. So if I'm focusing on the fact I want to go and get tied up and whipped, then, and I keep focusing on it but denying it, I would actually grow it and grow it and grow it to the point when it can then become superseding of my truth, if you like. If I go and scratch the itch and then I enjoy it, then it may be that that's beneficial and I can continue down that path. And I'm actually allowing for part of myself that again had previously been wronged and demonized to be experienced. Because what makes something good or bad, what makes something right or wrong? If we didn't have the word bad, there would be no bad, quite simply put, you know?
Well, and I suppose
So,
that the English language has that construct. It's a mixture of debased Latin and hieroglyphic text and the rest. And like you say, we're spelling in that sense again. It's back to the words and it's back to that frequency again. And like it creates that duality reality because that's what we've created, and that's why our consciousness is hijacked in the manner as to which it is, so
yeah,
that we keep creating the reality they want to see for us. I mean,
yeah,
it's always like I say with the truther movement at the moment, that's like, eating its own tail, quite frankly. So try to stay away from it as much as possible, but it's almost become, we know it's a stage in a theatre that they have set. So the more we stir at that and the more we battle and join in with it, I mean, it's not about being apathetic, because I'm a doer. I'm on the ground. I try and find, remedies and ways, like, as you do and as the Dark Matters Network does, etc. It's a practical resource. It's there.
yes,
But
yes, yes, yes.
also it is that be of the world, not in it. We've kind of got to, like, oh yeah, that's there. We'll be over here creating this and creating the new, and that's a different frequency entirely, which obviously then raises our consciousness collectively or as a collective.
Solution-based living. So that's, yeah, beautiful. So to reflect upon that, the strongest geometric shape is a triangle. Pyramid system, it has to be. It has to be. It's the strongest geometric shape. So we live in a pyramid scheme. We do. But it doesn't have to be such an extreme. We can't take down the top because it's already there. But what we can do is collectively come together on this, say, the right side is right, and start to raise our vibrational frequency, start to focus on the solution, start to really embody the belief in magic so that we can see it happen, aim for the stars so we have a chance in reaching them, and inspire and remind each other, reignite that passion for change and the drive towards creating it internally so it can be experienced externally. And then what we'll find is that it doesn't matter how much trickery and fuckery they do. When we raise our vibrational frequency and we've all collectively come together in this right-hand corner, the pyramid, we will raise that corner and we will become the top. And then what we do is we squash the pyramid right down. So it still has three sides, but the difference between the top and the bottom is so minute, it can't even be seen.
Yeah, that's it. It's and we've been laboring under this we call apex deception, where there's this small elite, 1%, they own pretty much most of the wealth. Is it like
Yep.
99% of the wealth to the rest of us?
No, yeah.
And they've been sat at the top of the apex, and like we were saying about, things that are causing disease within our bodies. For me, again, it goes back to this movement where, okay, we can look at what they're doing with the jibby jabs and trying to, crown poison, cuts off the source coronavirus, crown poison, and that they're doing 15-minute cities, and they're doing this, they're doing this next. But like we say, we're doing that thing where we are creating it, and it might sound like a bit of a cop out for people, but it isn't, and it's almost become like, and that's what I try and do at Dark Matters. I don't really do the fear porn and kind of have a lot of guests where we just talk about what they're doing. What I try and do, whether I achieve it or not, is try and get to the root cause of what is
Mhm.
causing these symptoms. 15-minute cities is a symptom. These jibber jabs are a symptom, and they're a symptom of something far deeper and far darker that is
Mhm.
ultimately also lurking within our own ancestry,
Mhm.
our own deep
Mhm.
conscious,
Mhm.
our
Mhm.
collective unconscious that we're bringing, forward, making
Mhm.
the unconscious conscious, etc. So it's like any kind of disease. We've got to kind of get to the root of it. Who are they, them? That's what I do in my new talk. The law, LORE, of the law. We're remembering who we are now. And again, people who have done the inner work, who have done this alchemizing of themselves. It's
Mhm.
not about perhaps. I think we do need strong leaders. I think that kind of
We do.
phrase, never a follower or a leader be. I don't. I just think we've been following the wrong people. I think people should take sovereignty, but the unity and community, we all help each other to get there. What, and as my nana says, and I'll say it on every podcast, we're all trying to get to the same place, maybe on a different buzz. And if the language is dividing us because you believe this and I believe in that, that's the whole point. Get rid of the construct, get rid of it all, and then you do the inner work and alchemize yourself, and then you are a Jedi, and we
Yes.
win.
We have already won. That is the truth, and life is
Yes.
the prize. And that's the realization that again helped me massively. It's going, okay, but the odds of being born, well, it actually goes way beyond this. It was in a TEDx talk. The odds of being born are 400 trillion to one, but it's actually way beyond that, as it's got like an extra 8 zeros on the end or whatever it is when I
Um,
actually researched it afterwards. But the odds of being born in this TEDx talk were 400 trillion to one. And you're more likely to win the lottery 9 times than you are to be alive. So then, well, the first question is, well, why the fuck haven't won the lottery? And my answer would be, well, you have. This is the prize. So there's nothing to
yeah.
win. There's nothing to do. The only reason you are here is to be you to the full, which is what it means to be beautiful again. And when we focus on the solution as opposed to the problem, we do help to bring that into creation. We grow that. If the mind is a garden, it's important the seeds that we plant, because the seeds that we plant will grow. But it's also more important, if anything, on what we focus upon, because where we focus our light of attention, where we send our energy, is then what we grow and bring into creation. And it's understanding that the winds of life will always blow weeds into the garden of the mind. There's accepting them and then focusing again on the solution-based living. And when we do that as a collective, then the solution becomes quite plain to see. Each one of us has a different piece of the jigsaw. We all bring it together, and then there is the complete image. So it's knowing that we are on the right path, that we're moving in the right direction, that every action you take is taking us, you individually and us as a collective, further towards that known destination, that image that we hold in our mind and we feel in our hearts and we know to be true. And something very simple, incredibly impactful, if we are to talk about light and dark being at battle, I would actually relate it to an internal dance.
Mm.
The masculine, the feminine, the yin, the yang, embraced in their first dance, just like as a wedding, locked eternally, rhythmically and majestically, dancing together, playfully. Light and dark are part of the same thing. But if it is a battle, and we are here as the light to extinguish the dark, I said about 3 years ago, their last card is alien invasion. It makes conscious sense that the last threat will collectively bring humanity together in fear, that they can then collectively control us, not separating us, not using airborne this or whatever that. It is an out of space threat, and they kind of seem to be ramping up towards that space. So they're getting ready to play their last card. There is no cards after that. Statement, phrase, really powerful, and really listen and embody this truth. To the light, darkness is just somewhere to shine. To the darkness, light is the very end of its existence. That's it.
Oh,
And
beautiful.
the darkest of rooms can be illuminated by even a single candle. No amount of darkness added can extinguish that light. And that light igniting and sparking another candle further illuminates the room. And I believe that that is what we should be looking towards. And we should be, again, we do need leaders. We need leaders that inspire and empower individuals to inspire and empower themselves. If I give you a fish, you eat for a day. If I teach you how to fish, you eat for life. If I teach you how to inspire yourself, then you become your own source of inspiration, and you can echo that everywhere else. So it's being very mindful of where we're receiving our information, because there are people in certain spaces and places which use comedy as an example, which is a very high vibrational frequency of creation, to focus on the problem. Look at the problem over here, everyone. This is the problem, and and I'm going to make it really comical, but I'm not going to give you any answer. I'm just going to focus on the problem, and then collectively we can focus on the problem and grow it with comedy and humor. Because fuck the system, but actually I work for them. So it's being very mindful of what information that we allow into our field of vision, because we are what we ingest in all ways, food and information, energy. We are sponges, and it's becoming more and more apparent. I'm having more and more conversations with people that I wouldn't even presume to be spiritual, that I've had a spiritual awakening, and now I can feel people's energy when I walk past them, and what the fuck is going on? I'm like, welcome, take a seat.
I know we've had some WhatsApp chats, haven't we? Especially the last few months, like you've been through some things energetically, I have, and there's been a lot of kind of crossover in the way we kind of dissect it down, and everybody's going through these things, isn't it? And it really is kind of about just keeping connected, because we are connected. Luminous beings are we. Our DNA emits light. That's how we communicate with each other. And we've been taught to not trust our instincts. We've been taught to disconnect from our own truths. And truth is so subjective. And again, if I can ever reiterate this point, this is the whole point of point of the year for me. It's all construct. We are the creators. We are the powerful ones. If you want to eat meat, eat meat. If you want to be a vegan, be a vegan. You're the creator. You're the powerful one. You are the divine spark. So you create it. So someone saying you're going to go to hell because of this or that. Well, who's told you that? That's coming again from an external source. And to me, there's no thing. But it's again back to the DNA. There's this form of what they would call like hypercommunication, and we have the ability as a collective to bring this back by trusting our instincts. Connecting back to one another, back to nature, back to the way things are. Which is why, of course, the powers that be, whatever we want to call them, check my other videos out for who they are, the Elven tribe, etc., and whatnot, the tribe of Dan, and they, them, but we know that's kind of what I'm banging on about by getting to the root cause. We know who they are, and
It
they're
doesn't
giving us
matter
all
who the
these
fuck they are as
Disneyland,
well.
Disney timelines and stories to keep us distracted from the one real truth. And the one real truth is that the power is ours, that it is us. And I don't just say that in a cheesy way, but again, this idea of hypercommunication, how different species can communicate even though they're far apart. And
Yes.
back to the Russian scientists, they talk about hypercommunication in relation to what's called we can create these wormholes between us, and we can emit all this information via our DNA. Now, in as above, so below, they call them Einstein-Rosen bridges, right? Which allows this transmission of information beyond space and time. And what's happening now as a collective is we're going through this deep. Our DNA is being activated, yeah. So they're going shut them up, and hence the jibby jabs, cutting off our crown chakra, which is connection to source. If you believe in the chakras, even I've never seen my own, but hey ho, let's not go there. But yeah, and it is
Your
this
chakras are
ability to be able
shining
to.
beautifully, darling.
No, thank you. I can feel them spinning and glowing. But yeah,
Chakras are
again, and
definitely
it's a
true.
light show, isn't it?
It's
It
likened
is.
to pools along a stream. So the easiest way to view ourselves energetically is a stream. It's a body of water. The masculine is the channel, it's the bed. The feminine is the movement, it's the flow, it's the fluidity, it's the life. Actually, a really controversial viewpoint and truth that I have embodied personally is it's the feminine that leads the way. Masculine is logic, feminine is heart. Love leads the way, our intuition leads the way. A river leading its way back to the ocean is the water that decides the movement and direction. And then the masculine, the channel instantly forms around it. So the more that we start to acknowledge and embody and honor the feminine internally and externally, as opposed to oppressing her because of her massively powerful abilities of creation and divinity. Imagine being like years and years, like historic, like dark ages almost. I'm a leader of men, and I do so with fear and control. And this beautiful woman comes in with all of her sexual energy, whispers some magic into my ears, and I've turned to mush. And then I then do all of these things that I wouldn't have otherwise done, and I feel powerless to her. I can't feel powerless to the woman. So what will I do? Instead of actually going, okay, she's powerful, let's come together and do some magic together. I'm going to repress her. I'm going to put her down because she makes me feel powerless. So I repress her, and then I'll feel more empowered. And that is in the collective. The repression of the feminine is massively in the collective, which comes out in all spaces. And then even in, to go back to kinks, the repression sexually, women actually, a lot of women like to be repressed sexually because it's a way of being able to gain a kink through the repression. So it's a negative. So then the kink, the external kink, is to actually find pleasure in the negatives. That is a typical example of an external kink. I want to be told I'm a good girl because I never was. I want to call you daddy because my daddy never told me I was a good girl. I want to be repressed because actually it makes me feel good being repressed because I feel internally repressed, etc., etc., you know?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and no, I agree because I would say I've probably got all three t-shirts, but nobody needs to know the sexual experiences of the spell this time in the afternoon. But yeah, and those are things again, that I've had to work through that then I've become aware of. What's that about? What's that about? Amongst a whole other show of things, I've had to question what's that about? And that is that growth, isn't it? And
Yeah.
it does take strength to really look at yourself without giving yourself any excuses, without blaming others. It's such a powerful thing, and you beat
That's
me to
it.
it actually because it was one of the things that I'd wrote that I was going to ask you about because I know we've had lots of conversations about this, and I think women do lead energetically. I mean, we can see that as women's kind of unchaining, that kind of chained unicorn, like taking that off. Um, I mean, there's a whole host of reasons. Michael Tazarian, who we might be getting on the main podcast, I've not asked him yet, but hopefully he may come on.
Yeah.
He talks about how basically because the women we were like high priestesses and magi and as with the men as well, and we were going back to being druids and back on the land, and this land is the holy land, etc. But we haven't got time to go into that. Watch the other videos. That basically the men we kind of we shagged the fallen angels or created the Nephilim, and men have been a bit like, bitch, since, and it's that whole thing, eat the apple
Exactly
anyway,
that.
Eve, because you're going to
Exactly
get
that.
blamed for it anyway. But I
I
always
did a
say,
video
who's
on
got the
that.
Adam's apple,
Yeah,
who's got
well,
the apple stuck in the throat?
again, the undercurrent in humanity,
Yeah,
as a man, we're rejected by the feminine when we're birthed. Instantly, we feel rejection by the feminine, being born, and then we go through a journey of feeling rejected by the feminine, and then we're told that the reason for the downfall, the reason we don't live in Eden, is because Eve ate the apple. So it's like, well, she rejected me, and she's the reason I'm not in heaven. So fuck you, bitch, eating the fucking apple. I can't trust you.
pretty
I
much.
can't trust you, so I have to control you because if I don't
Yeah,
control you, you might go and eat another apple and condemn us even further. But
yeah, yeah,
actually, the truth of the situation is if we surrendered to the divinity of the feminine internally, I'm speaking about here, men. I'm not
yeah,
saying that, go and do what your mum tells you when she's trying to get you to go to church as an example, and that's not something that aligns with your belief
yeah,
structure. But honor the feminine internally, trust your intuition, trust your joy, like go skipping, be playful, be more sporadic, be more artistic, and notice how much more enriched your life then feels because of it.
yeah. And I think it's a beautiful, 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 beautiful thing, if I can say, be you to the full, men.
Be to the
And
full.
and the women are sorry about that. And can you come back to us, please? And let's all just kind of forgive one another and move forward, really. But again,
Yeah.
it's yes, it is external. When we bring back, true divine union of woman and man, then not only is that becoming, again, what as within, so without. when we balance ourselves internally, our masculine and feminine energies, just as you said there, and so do the men, and so do we. But then we also have these external units then, because we've balanced it within ourselves. We've
Hmm.
reached that equilibrium. I mean, the word God means equilibrium. So once we've done that, we project that out, and so on and so forth. And that is what they say becoming holy is. You know, to become whole or holy is to integrate the masculine and the feminine within us. And if you can then get the divine union outside of there, then the dark are really done, so to speak. And that's why they don't want that. Hence why this destruction of the family unit, this
Yes.
trying to emasculate,
Well,
demasculate. I can never say that word.
demasculinized, yeah.
That's it. Demasculinize our men, turn men into women. This transhumanism, this inversion of the sexes, injecting males with female hormones and females with male hormones. I mean, it's a mess out there. Really, all that
It's the
kind of thing.
start of
But
the
it's only
downfall
because
of the society, really, when we start to mess around with the sovereign roles of masculine and feminine, energetically and
yes,
physically. But again, it's all happening for us. It's all happening for us. It's not happening to us. It's happening for us. For whatever reason, we need to go over here a little bit to come back over here. We
yeah,
don't know why. So it's pointless trying to understand what they're doing and instead just allow for an understanding of the way it makes us feel and then choose whether we can change the situation or we can't and then act accordingly. Do I have enough water to put out that fire? No, it's too big a fire. Okay. Is there a smaller fire I can put out to stop it spreading? Yeah, over there. I'll go put that fire out. Or should I raise awareness that there's this big fire and then create a beautiful community, such as you have done, to bring everyone together in a space where we can go, there's a big fire over there, guys. And we've actually got enough water together now to put it out.
yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Well, and then on that note, I guess, and I think it really is the key to everything, and that's why it's so important work that you do. And it's been a privilege. I mean, I've been on some of your Zooms, etc. as well. It's super cool, and you really do. I think I cried on your last one, didn't I? I think I got choked the most because you do. It does
Mhm.
it brings these things up from deep kind of in the well of yourself and gives you a chance things that you've forgotten even
Yeah.
just to be. And I'm not a big group kind of joiner particularly, but I did get a lot from it. It's because it really is the key to all this,
Yeah,
without a shadow of a
100%.
doubt.
And that's a beautiful way
Proud
of
of
looking at it to kind of bring a closure. It's again like a body of water. In the deepest, darkest depths of a body of water, monsters reside. Do they?
yeah.
I don't know. I can't see it. So I expect they do. In the deepest, darkest depths of water, there are versions of ourself, the monsters, that exist down there that detrimentally affect us and limit us, that prevent us reaching our truest heights because they are in the darkness, they're separate, and they actually keep us down. Every time we start to rise, they come out and put us back down. It's the storms of life which actually create the currents, which churn up all those pollutants from the depth of the body of water to the surface, so that then we can scoop them out, clean them, cleanse them, and redistribute them somewhere new. So anytime we feel triggered by somebody or something is actually a gift because it's showing us part of ourself that we're not accepting. When we accept every part of ourselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly, we're then able to accept everything externally. When we accept everything as it is and where we are, we then have that start point to move forwards from. So it's an acceptance that yes, life is shit, and then we die, but that we have the control and the power, if you like, of what we do with that shit. We can either carry it around with us, weighing us down and creating our own personal version of hell, making us smell, sweep it under the rug, out of sight, out of mind, but there it creates a hostile and putrid environment for anyone that wants to come near. That was my way. Fucking sweep it under the rug. All the shit, just fucking out of sight. I'll deal with it all. I'll carry all the weight. Fucking broken. I'm gonna break. I smell like shit. Don't get too close to me. You might see that I'm fucked. Yeah. Or we use that shit as fertilizer. And we dig it into the garden of our mind and we use it to grow our seeds of intention in, growing them more big and more beautiful than we could have done without that shit. So it's up to you. Life is shit, then you die. What are you going to do with that shit?
Yeah. And shit like manure helps things grow. And
Exactly that.
that's how we've got to kind of look at it, hasn't it? You know,
Exactly that.
and it is transmuting. It is this alchemy again of turning that lead, um, reaching through matter back into spirit, because we are spirit in our meat suits,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we get out. If I don't, you know, if you think you're trapped, you're trapped. Like we said earlier, if you think we're not, we're not. It is what we create.
Yeah,
It's
exactly
up
that.
to us.
Exactly
And
that.
yeah, it's certainly the work, man. It's the shadow work. Make friends with your demons. You be
Yeah,
vibing with your demons. You know, you like make
100%.
friends with them, don't you?
100%.
Yeah,
100%. I learned a
yeah,
lot from the devil, or from what my
yeah,
internal version that is demonic in nature, that is the darkness. And at the end of the journey, I shook his hand and I said, thank you. And now the devil holds no power over me because, well, he is me.
yeah. I got Lilith. I got Lilith turn up at my door. I just like, is that the best you've got? There's me, Jilly Kid.
No,
Well, yeah, well, so if you
amazing. Yeah.
want to see more of Kaine, please do join us in Dark Matters. Kaine's in the network. We're going to be doing more and more kind of work together. We've got some events coming
Mm-hmm,
up, but stay tuned in the network for those as well.
mm-hmm.
And membership is free. And Kaine's Inner Child Healing course is now up in the network. Also, just have to say to people, you can't book courses, unfortunately, through the Mighty Networks mobile app. You have to get on your laptop and log into Dark Matters on your laptop, and you can view course content and you can view courses that way. It's a bit of a pain at the moment. I'm trying to get it changed, but so Kaine, thank you so much. I could talk to you for hours, as we do
Thank you.
sometimes.
Yeah,
It's been absolutely, yeah, just beautiful. Love it, love it. Be you to the full, Kaine, because
beautiful.
what you're doing is
No, thank
amazing.
you, Carly. Thank you so much for creating this space and everything that you're doing to bring this information to the collective. We are in a time of great change. We are waking up as a species, and you are one of the people at the forefront of this change. You're laying the foundation. You are the embodiment of we are the change we wish to see. I know you believe in magic. You are again a representation of that, and we're on this journey that you've started. So everybody that is coming through this space, everybody that is then able to enrich their lives and the lives of those around them, yes, it's because of themselves, because without them doing the work wouldn't take place. But it's because of you as well. You've created that space. Without that space, there wouldn't be that space to be able to connect, to reflect, to learn, to grow, to support each other, to start to take back our power, our authenticity, our sovereignty, you know? So thank you,
Oh,
truly,
thank you.
wholeheartedly.
And
Thank you.
thank you for being a big part of it, because you are beautiful.
No, it's my pleasure.
Thanks everybody for watching. Thank you again to Kaine, and we'll see you next time.
Stay beautiful.